John Cena has been doing a lot of these, and we talked a little bit about it with Broski on the Broski Breakdown on Tuesday. But John Cena has been doing a lot of these conventions, a lot of the fan fests and conventions and stuff like that, the larger scale ones. And with many of them, he ends up doing an onstage Q&A session. And somebody asked him, who his best rival was, who his favorite opponent was. And what was a fairly typical question, I thought John Cena turned into a very interesting answer. Because he said, well, there's a lot of them. And he listed Randy Orton, Edge, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and AJ Styles. And I love those answers because all 5 of those are amazing rivalries, but they also kind of span John Cena's career. But the thing that I found most interesting was that John Cena described them as these are my wrestling soulmates. And I went, I've never thought about that before, because you think rival, that's one thing. But he said he said Randy, Edge, Punk, Seth, and AJ are people who he thinks of as his wrestling soulmates. And these are, what is a soulmate? A soulmate is a partner that makes you better, that you are somehow kind of intrinsically connected to, right? That there is no, you exist separately, but just something magical happens when you two are linked. It makes both of you better. And on some level, you will always be associated together. As much as you have your own things, you'll always be associated together. And I said, wrestling soulmates, that is a great concept. Because then I started thinking, okay, if he can only have one soulmate, let's say I said to John Cena, no, you can't have 5 soulmates. I asked my wife about having 5 soulmates. She said, absolutely not. I said, okay, I'll just take you then. But you can't have 5 soulmates. You can have one soulmate, okay? And I go, okay, so who is John Cena's soulmate? We have it narrowed down to Randy Orton, Edge, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and AJ Styles. And I said, out of all 5 of those, who do I pair with John Cena, in the sense that when I think John Cena, I think of this person. When I think of this person, I think of John Cena. Who of that group, I can honestly say, when linked with John Cena, made John better and John made him better, more so than anybody else. Because I can tell you, AJ Styles, as much as I love that rivalry, he's had so many link-ups with so many different people. And there is something special about the AJ John Cena rivalry. I think AJ did bring out the best in John Cena, but I don't think that AJ is the one. And for AJ, I don't think John Cena is the one. If you go, this person can only have, this is it. This is the person that John Cena has to be paired with. To me, out of those 5, I think it's Edge. I think John Cena and Edge, more so than any of those other people, are wrestling soulmates. I think John always brings out the best in Edge. I think Edge always brought out the best in John. I think there's just something, the 2 characters where John Cena is this king of WWE PG, and Edge is the rated R superstar. John Cena is everything a good guy should be and portrays everything a good guy should be. And Edge is everything a bad guy should be and portrays everything a bad guy should be. And nothing makes John Cena look like more of a good guy than Edge. And nothing makes Edge look like more of a bad guy than John Cena. So to me, I instantly go John Cena and Edge. Of that group, John Cena and Edge for me are wrestling soulmates. Then I go a step further in my brain. And I go, what are my favorite wrestling soulmates? Not favorite rivalry, not favorite matchup, wrestling soulmates. And I start going down and thinking about these are to me it's rivalries. I don't look at it as partners. I look at it as rivalries because ultimately, yes, a team is great. Hawk and Animal, sure. But that rivalry is what is really going to bring out the best in each other. I think that being partner, from my perspective as a fan, being partners in a rivalry is an even closer relationship than being partners in a tag team. Because when you're partners in a tag team, you can each kind of do your own thing. And yes, it's all about the unit, but ultimately you can do your own thing. When you're partners in a rivalry, well, now you're making each other look better. Right now, it's like the two of you paired off is what people are buying tickets to. And hopefully you can both come out of it even better than you came in. So if you've got an example of what you think is the best wrestling soulmate pair, for me, John Cena, Edge, that is wrestling soulmates. The phone number is 877-344-4893. And I'll tell you the first name that popped into my head after I started going, okay, let's see how deep I go with these wrestling soulmates. I go, okay, who is Hulk Hogan's soulmate? When you go with rivalries, when you go with certain eras, Hulk Hogan, he's got to have one, right? Hulk Hogan's wrestling soulmate. And I'm thinking about Hulkamania, and I'm thinking about Hulk Still Rules, and I'm thinking about Hollywood, and I'm thinking about the big rivalries, of course. You think about Piper was a name that popped into my head early on, right? WrestleMania 1, that whole kind of rise of Hulkamania is associated with Roddy Piper. Yes. I even went to WrestleMania 6 and go to Ultimate Warrior and all that. But for me, the wrestling soulmate, the rivalry, if I could only watch Hulk Hogan wrestle one other person and believe in that feud and believe in that story and know that, by the way, whether these two like each other or not, there is something cosmic in the universe that links these two, and you're going to end up with the two of them bringing out the best in each other. I think Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan are complete wrestling soulmates. I think there is something, it's not just a rivalry, there is some kind of invisible connective tissue that you didn't even realize was there before you saw these two together. And once when Hogan and Macho, when the mega powers collide, when you get to WrestleMania 5, when you see, and it goes on and on and on, of course. And it's real life too. But to me, there's something where it's like, what's the big deal about Hulk Hogan? What's the big deal about Macho Man? Nothing displays it more than when the two of them are together, when the two of them are fighting each other. That Mega Powers match, that is the mega match. So to me, Hogan and Macho are one of the great wrestling soulmate pairings ever. Susumu, does that pass the mustard for you?
It does, definitely.
AJ, you said you have a wrestling soulmate pair that you've been chomping at the bit to get into.
It wasn't anything specific. I just had a bunch running through my head. Mm-hmm. Excited for this show. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have one that you want to pitch me?
CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, or CM Punk, Bryan Danielson.
Interesting. It was, I will say, Punk and Danielson was one of those matches that the minute it gets announced, you felt like you were in for something special when they would, even if it would just be like Punk and Danielson on Raw. Bryan Daniel versus or Daniel Bryan versus CM Punk. You go like, this is something special. I don't know. In ring, I can do soulmate. I don't know if I can give it enough story, like those characters. Like I don't know that there is something cosmic about the way that they're linked, but I don't know if it's the same as like John Cena and Edge, Macho Man and Hulk Hogan. This was on my list. Let's go to Jeremy in Alabama. What's up, Jeremy?
Oh, man, it's going. It's a beautiful cloudy day here.
Love to hear it.
I've got one that I think of every time, but then I also have one that just kind of lingers.
Okay.
Also.
Okay.
My number one is Shawn and Brett. Shawn and Brett, to me, will always be, that will be the greatest rivalry. And who knows whether Brett really, truly has forgiven
yeah.
and let go of everything. I mean, because, he may or may not. I don't know.
Right.
Just listening to him in interviews, I still think he holds a grudge.
I think he holds a lot of grudges.
Yeah, but I think that right there is one that I'll always remember. But my second one is Flair and Sting. They'll
Okay.
always be connected.
Okay, so thank you, Jeremy. First of all, I couldn't agree more about Shawn and Brett. I think Shawn and Brett for sure are wrestling soulmates, and that goes back to whether they like it or not. Did Hogan and Macho Man love each other? Nope, but they were wrestling soulmates. Did Shawn and Brett love each other? Nope, but they were wrestling soulmates, to the point where it's like, and part of being a wrestling soulmate is, are you a Shawn guy or are you a Brett guy? You a Hogan guy, you a Macho Man guy? You a Cena guy, you an Edge guy? You know what I mean? You can't be both, because that story is told kind of so beautifully. And the Brett and Shawn thing, it's not just Montreal. It's not just 97. You could take it back to 96, WrestleMania 12, and the Boyhood Dream. You could take it all the way back. For me, I think I realized there was something going on here in 92. If you go back to Survivor Series 92, when the whole WWE is like on its head because they lost Ultimate Warrior, they lost the British Bulldog, like everybody's leaving or suspended for steroids or whatever. And all of a sudden, the headline of this Survivor Series show is Bret the Hitman Hart, who has won the WWE Championship from Ric Flair out of nowhere. He just won it on a house show in Saskatoon or someplace like that, versus Shawn Michaels, who was the Intercontinental Champion at the time. IC title not on the line. World title on the line. And that Survivor Series 92 match is magic. And I remember watching that in 1992, going, there's something really special about these guys. And that sort of soulmates thing goes all the way through 5 years to Montreal, to, again, Survivor Series 97, where they are the two biggest stars in the industry now, still having that rivalry. It becomes a real rivalry. We see what we see, and the whole thing explodes. But still, when you ask about Brett, you think about Shawn. When you ask about Shawn, you think about Brett. They are wrestling soulmates. As far as Ric Flair and who do you say, Sting? I thought about it because that was another name. After I said, I was thinking about Hogan, and I said, okay, Macho Man is the soulmate. That was where I landed on that. If you disagree, you can call, but that's where I landed on that. Ric Flair was the next one I thought of. And Sting was a name that I came up with. I said, maybe it's Sting. Clash of Champions, seeing those careers rise together. But I don't think it is. I think Sting is one of the great rivals for Ric Flair. And it's a great thing if Sting is the good guy and Ric Flair is the bad guy, but there's almost a mentor-mentee thing going on with Sting and Ric Flair. I don't have that as soulmates. John in Queens, you have a Flair suggestion?
Yes, Sam Roberts. I have it's Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan, and this is an old friend of yours from your younger days.
My
John
God.
from the New York State Wrestling Federation.
Oh, very cool. What's up, man?
Nothing. I have not called a wrestling show in 35 years, and I said, this is the one I got to call in.
Wow.
And you got my memory and jogging my memory.
Okay.
As I was driving on the hutch.
Of course you were.
And as I'm cutting through Pelham, I was pulling over, and I said to myself, yeah, it's got to be Flair and Hogan, because not only they got along so well, and in all of their matches, Flair got in all of his stuff. Hogan got in all of his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? On the record, neither of them ever badmouthed each other. So right there, they got back going for themselves. And there was a respect for each, that each had for, Flair had for Hogan's national success, and Hogan had for Flair's success doing the 60-minute matches beforehand, doing the loop.
For sure.
That Hogan never had in the territory era. So
for sure. Thank you, John. Good talking to you, dude.
Yes, and you take care, and I wish you the best of luck with all that you're doing.
Thank you,
take care.
John booked me. First indie show I was ever booked on was booked by John, who booked me to be a celebrity judge in the boxer versus wrestler match featuring Sweet and Sour Larry Sweeney and I turned heel. Yes, I turned heel after a low blow. Yes, I did. But his suggestion of Hogan, that was another name that popped into my head for Ric Flair. Could it be Flair and Hogan? And I almost landed on that, but I said no. I said I can't give Hogan to both Macho Man and Ric Flair. And also, I think that when you talk about good guy, bad guy, when you talk about stories, when you talk about all this, to me, the soulmate to Ric Flair is Dusty. For me, I think that when you talk about like there's just who's Dusty, who's the guy that you think of when you think of a Dusty opponent? Flair, son of a plumber versus the guy driving a Rolls Royce. Who's the guy that you think of? Who is the complete antithesis of Ric Flair? Dusty, the guy that what opponent made people cheer Dusty more than Ric Flair? What opponent made people boo Ric Flair more than Dusty? To me, it's got to be Dusty and Flair. However, Corey disagrees. What's up, Corey?
Well, actually not so much anymore, but I was going to say Ricky Steamboat because they really did elevate each other. But when you brought up the whole Dusty thing, yeah, I got to agree with you, Sam.
No, Ricky.
Sam is always right.
You're right. You're right about that, Corey. Thank you. Ricky Steamboat's a good one. And the series of matches that they had, especially coming up, are amazing. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to be tough to shake me away from the idea that Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes, if you could only have one. I think if you can have more than one, I think Dusty, Hogan, Sting, maybe, Ricky Steamboat for sure. If you can have a list, those would all be on the Flair list. But if you can only have one, I would put my feet down and say Dusty is the one.